Okay, let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at some source material excerpts from what seem to be news briefs recorded back on June 4th, 2025. It's quite a mix: U.S. policy, the economy, tech, science, even a bit of sports and culture. Our job here is to sort of unpack all this. What are the key takeaways? What do these snapshots tell us about what was happening?
It's interesting when you lay it all out, you really start to see connections, how one thing might influence another, sometimes in unexpected ways.
Exactly, that interconnectedness. So maybe starting with U.S. policy, the briefs mentioned the Trump administration bringing back those steel and aluminum tariffs.
Yes, and it's framed as a duplication of previous tariffs that immediately bring up that whole constitutional debate again, doesn't it?
About presidential emergency powers and trade.
Precisely. Without fresh congressional backing, it puts that separation of powers issue right back on the table. It's a big legal question.
Right. The legal angle is key. And sticking with administration moves, there was also the dismissal of the entire Educational Research Board.
Yeah, that's not something you see every day. Firing a whole board like that. It strongly suggests, a potential major shift in direction for education research funding and focus.
Definitely sends a message. Okay, also under U.S. policy, the reports talk about a real focus on immigration enforcement.
They do. And specifically targeting visa overstays. The briefs explicitly link this push to the arrest of an Egyptian citizen, Mohammed Sabri Solomon.
The individual accused of terrorism who had reportedly overstayed.
That seems to be the catalyst mentioned for these heightened security measures.
And part of those measures was a pause on certain visas.
Correct. A temporary pause on new appointments for F&M visas, student visas, basically. And there was also talk reported about possibly revoking visas for some Chinese citizens in, quote, sensitive areas.
Wow. That's a huge potential impact on students and researchers. Then there's the Supreme Court decision mentioned.
Yes, allowing the end of that specific humanitarian parole program for Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela.
Humanitarian parole being that temporary permission to enter for urgent reasons.
Exactly. So ending that program raises some pretty big questions for a lot of people who might have been relying on that pathway.
Okay, so a lot happening on the policy front. How did the economy seem to be reacting based on these briefs?
Well, Wall Street was a bit mixed that day. S&P 500 up slightly, Dow down a little, NASDAQ up a little. Pretty standard fluctuation, maybe.
But the tariffs were having a more direct impact.
That's what the reports highlight. Dollar Tree, for instance, warning that tariffs could cut their profits by up to 50%.
But 50%? That's huge.
Massive. And the Fed's Beige Book apparently also noted inflation worries linked to trade policy, with companies basically passing costs on to consumers.
You can see the direct line there. Was there any positive economic news mentioned?
There was a big investment announcement from Global Foundries, over $16 billion for semiconductor manufacturing here in the U.S.
That's significant for chip production and employment data.
Just described as mixed in the briefs. No strong signal either way, it seems.
Okay, let's shift gears to technology. Some interesting AI applications reported.
Yeah, this was fascinating. Researchers using AI to flag potential wildlife trafficking hotspots at airports worldwide. They identified 307 airports, including places like Dallas and Denver here.
Using tech to fight global crime. Interesting. Anything else on tech?
The U.S. Armed Forces reportedly discussing using more drones and autonomous systems to be more agile, but there's also a reality check. The FDA is apparently having trouble implementing its own AI tool that was meant to speed up approvals for medical devices.
So the promise of AI versus the practical challenges of getting it working smoothly.
Exactly. That gap between hype and reality.
Makes sense. Okay, what about science and health news?
Some concerning stuff. Funding cuts reported for ALS research at a Harvard lab. That's always tough news for vital research.
Definitely.
And environmentally kind of unusual, a large Sahara dust cloud reaching Florida, apparently suppressing rainfall there.
Sahara dust all the way in Florida. Wow. Extreme weather elsewhere, too.
Seems so. Heavy rain and hail in Southern California, but then Miami had floods after a drought. It just highlights these, volatile weather patterns.
Wild swings.
Yeah.
And avian flu, H5N1.
Yes, a third outbreak confirmed, this time on an Arizona egg farm. Nearly 1.4 million birds affected, apparently, and the concern about potential human spread continues.
Always background worry. Other health news.
The FDA reportedly committed to reviewing the mifepristone abortion pill, obviously a very significant issue, and also they ordered a review of infant formula nutrients.
Oh, Operation Stork Speed.
That's the one, apparently the first review like that since 1998.
Been a while. Okay, quickly touching on sports highlights.
Couple of eye catchers. Manny Pacquiao, the boxer, reportedly planning a comeback at 46 to challenge for a title, trying to become the oldest champ ever.
Incredible longevity. And something surprising in basketball.
Yeah, the Knicks reportedly firing their coach, Tom Thibodeau. Pretty controversial timing given he just led them to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in, 25 years?
That is bold timing. Okay, finally, culture and society. Two different stories stood out.
One was really powerful from Mexico City. Migrant women organizing to collect discarded supermarket food to share with others.
Yeah, I saw that quote.
What is garbage for others for us is a great blessing. It just shows incredible resilience, doesn't it? Community stepping up.
Truly amazing. And the other point.
Just a stark reminder of cross-border environmental impacts. Milwaukee apparently had the worst air quality in the U.S. that day because of smoke from Canadian wildfires.
Shows how connected environmental issues are, regardless of borders.
Absolutely.
So when you pull back and look at all these pieces from just one day's news briefs, policy, economy, tech, environment, human stories, what's the big picture?
I think it really underscores how interconnected everything is. You see global policy choices having local economic effects, environmental issues crossing borders, technology creating new possibilities and new challenges, and underlying it all, these very human stories of adaptation and struggle. It's all linked.
It really is. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For you listening, how do you see these seemingly separate threads from a day like June 4th, 2025, connecting in your own world and your own understanding?
Yeah, definitely something to reflect on.
Indeed. That wraps up our deep dive for today.